Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining our webinar that talks about how QA orchestration can improve your mobile testing productivity. My name is Mush. I am the strategic advisor at Catalon, and I will be joined by my colleague and friend, Devian Tharp, who is a sales engineer at Kobaton. Before we begin our presentation and discussion today, a few housekeeping items. As we go through the presentation, if you have any questions that you would like for us to discuss and answer towards the end of the presentation, please add them into the Q&A section for the webinar, and we'll be sure to go through those at the end. Also, as we go through this, we will, towards the end, also request that you provide feedback through a polling question. We would really appreciate it if you could give us feedback when the polling comes in. So having said that, let's go ahead and kick off our webinar. I want to make sure you guys are seeing my screen. I've got the opening slide available with the name and the date of our presentation. If for some reason you are not seeing it, please let me know through the chat window or the Q&A window. All right, Davian, are you on? I just want to make sure you are able to hear and speak as well before we kick this off.
Hey, Mush, I'm here. Good morning.
Awesome. Good morning. Thank you. Great. So today, we're going to talk about how Katalon and Kobiton can help solve your problems when it comes to QA orchestration, especially on the mobile front. You know, one of the key things we do know is there's millions, really, if not more, of devices out there, and with so many different iterations, makes, models, and OS versions, it really becomes very difficult for us as testers to keep on track and be able to really confidently say that our product, before it goes out the door, works as expected with the different pool or devices that are out there. So the solution that we want to talk to you about today is the combination of how Catalan would be the key piece to help solve that problem for you. And we'll through a series of demos explain to you how easy that is to really take the questioning and the stress and the frustration that typically comes with device orchestration by using a solution such as Kobiton along with Catalan. So a little bit before we get started and dive into the details, for those of you who are not familiar with Catalan, this is an all-in-one testing solution and platform. Catalon Studios has been consistently rated as the top pick and top test automation software by our users for the last 2 to 3 years. You know, as expected, also towards the end of last year, we were recognized with that award as well. And you know, the key differentiator for us has been the fact that we are not paying resources to actually call our name out or be reviewed and be part of any reviews. All of this feedback and selection is coming through peer reviews and insights, you know, such as sites as you see on Gartner and such, right? It's not a paid accomplishment or where we actually use our marketing dollars to do that. This is from feedback from testers such as yourself who have identified and used the product to solve their testing needs. Why is it such a big popular tool, and why is it so much in demand? It's simple, right? The key thing for us is when we started off with Catalan, our core goal for the tool was how do we make a single platform that enables us as testers to be able to do all sorts of testings within the same tool. You don't want to learn a different, you know, tools for different purposes and try to use those in. So as we developed this product, we made sure that it allows the same product to enable teams to do any sort of API testing, any sort of mobile device testing using both emulators and actual devices. enable different browsers to be included as part of the entire test suite, as well as extend the testing out to applications that are still dependent on desktops. So it's got a complete solution across all of these varied challenges that testers face. On top of that, looking at just the infrastructure of where teams are moving towards, this is fully compatible to be executed on AWS or Azure DevOps. You definitely can leverage containers and services, virtualization services such as Docker to leverage test automation. It works across all of the OSs. So you could have a Windows setup, you could have a Mac OS, or you could be in Linux. You could definitely leverage this tool. And as I was mentioning earlier, because we enable mobile and web testing, it works across all of your devices as well as all of the leading web browsers as well. So, Davin, do you want to quickly talk about Kobaton and give our audiences a quick overview of the platform as well?
Yeah, be more than happy to. So good morning, everyone. Really great to meet you all. Just as Mush mentioned, just by way of quick introduction, my name is Devin Tharp. I am one of the sales engineers here at Kobaton, and really excited to bring you guys a platform today. So for individuals that have either not heard of Kobaton or very early in the infancy of hearing of Kobaton, we see ourselves as a platform for quality obsessed companies. This really allows us to help them build better, test products and solutions much smarter. And as companies that choose Kobaton grow, we even allow them to help scale their testing operation. So this really helps us and comes into play by helping eliminating app abandonment, helping you accelerate your test automation, really converting more through your mobile channels. Reason being is because we consider ourselves to be the industry's only mobile experience platform. If you are able to have a chance to go on the website and look at a couple customers that we've helped out, we do have industry leaders across many verticals that see success leveraging our solution to fuel and support their testing. The real question that needs answering is, how would you use Kobaton? So when people come to us, when people think of mobile testing in general or mobile quality, most people think about a real device infrastructure. How do I make the most out of the amount of real devices I have in an accessible manner so I can test my application or system under test with those real devices? Here at Kobaton, we offer that. So we are able to help with the industry's most flexible and high-performing device cloud. So whether it be through wanting to leverage our shared pool of public devices, wanting to set up more of a private deployment to where the devices are just for you, whether you want to do local, on-premise, or really just build a hybrid model to allow you to have everything, we will give you the ability to support all those solutions and make it flexible to support your needs. The slide that's on the screen here, it really shows the life cycle of Kobaton and how we can help with the multitude of roles that you might have in your organization. So as we know, starting off with preventing, quality really starts off with the developers. Developers will love the ability with Kobaton to use Kobaton directly from their IDE with a couple of tunneling solutions that we have and the ability to debug applications before you're getting ready to push them to test. Perfect being the next one. So once you push it to test, QA can truly perfect their applications and their websites with our intelligent quality suite. So teams can build and execute manual and automated tests, functional, performance, and visual tests, and you are able to automate all of it with Kobaton's AI-driven scriptless solutions. Going down to resolve, you will have the ability to leverage our session exploration in addition to our AI-based remediation for those functional, visual, and performance issues. And we will walk through just about all of this during the demonstration today. And then for release. So the continuous testing and mobile DevOps can actually work, and we can help you release quickly because we offer integrations and APIs that allow your teams to easily plug into Kobaton, plug Kobaton into your existing CI/CD solutions. At the end of it all, being able to measure and understand this through advanced reporting and analytics, you will be able to pass all this testing information that we collect into your reporting solutions to understand those very critical pass or fail and success metrics and really be able to track everything that is going on within the QA organization. So really excited to show you guys how we can start to access these real devices today, how we can potentially support any and all parallel execution, and specifically checking out those metrics once everything is said and done within the sessions area, and how we can start to view all that.
Awesome. Thank you, Devin. All right. So when we think about QA orchestration, we should step back a little bit and talk about, why is that even a key area of concern? And if you've been for a while within the testing space and the software delivery space, you realize that the importance of proper orchestration and the access to the different environments and different devices, especially when it comes to mobile testing, the criticality of it is growing, and the urgency with which it needs to be addressed is growing. If you were to think about why that is, it typically boils down to three key obstacles that orchestration tries to solve or resolve about. One of the core reasons why the need for proper orchestration is critical is simply because of the increased, so to speak, agility of changes that applications are going through currently. One of the key challenges with software development being a global initiative is all organizations want to have the edge on their competitors or be first to market with a new idea. And this sort of agility and required ability to respond, to react, to be the first, so to speak, implies for us as testers to be part of the delivery mechanism that enables all of those changes and continues to build the confidence that those changes actually are going in as expected and not breaking downstream systems or downstream processes. The second reason, so to speak, is also this being traditionally a gap in how effectively you can validate different functionalities and behaviors across different platforms, across different browsers, across different mobile devices. And as those combinations continue to increase every day, us as testers and us as delivery teams, we have constraints both tied to budgets and times, as well as resources in helping us prepare different environments to actually test all of those changes, test all of the functionality across all of these different variations. So it's almost exponentially growing at a pace that is not ideal for true financial and budgetary constraints that teams typically face today. And then finally, what's also interesting is even though automation is on the up and up as far as adoption goes, it's on the up and up with new techniques with DevOps coming into the play and additional tools coming into the play. It's interesting to also note that testing is still considered as a key bottleneck, and it's not so much as the execution time, so to speak, but it's all of the after effects that happen when failures are encountered. So what happens when you have flaky tests? What happens when you have failures? How do you investigate that? How do you build your confidence when investigating those failures? What processes and what tasks can tools come into play to help us minimize the time spent over there? So it's really the three areas that we are going to talk to you about today, and show you how combining the tools of Catalon and Kobiton and the features available in these products can help you overcome this, which really translates to being able to deliver faster and faster and really overcome these obstacles. So just piggybacking on those three areas, here's some interesting data that we were able to mine out from the World Quality Report that came out or comes out every year. The key area to focus here is that very first item. This is a poll that was done to several organizations across the world. And one of the key findings that this report highlighted was most teams that are trying to automate or even automating, are facing difficulties for that simple reason that the applications stay change too often with every release. So this comes back to sort of the number one item that we are trying to address with Catalan and Kobiton. The second component in all of this, coming back to the different platforms and environments and the needs to have a stable environment and easier access to actually continue all of the executions of the tests. You can see in the same report, most teams have identified their frustration and their recognition of a lack, so to speak, of appropriate environments and relative test data to be able to effectively test their applications to the level that they feel confident when they release it. And you can see over the last 4 years how that trend traditionally is the concern really is growing and growing. Finally, coming to the point I made earlier about testing teams still being seen as bottlenecks. So this was an interesting find. There was a survey done by the GitLab community called the DevSecOps landscape. They were trying to understand, from the SDLC perspective, how many teams are actually moving towards leveraging the capabilities that DevOps offers and the tools that come into that ecosystem, and what have been the observations of developers, testers, and business stakeholders across the board for how that adoption and transition is going. And what was interesting was a comment that I picked up when reading that survey was the majority of the survey takers seem to point to testing as the area that is most likely to cause delays. And really what was a little bit more upsetting, quite honestly, in that was also the fact that they said, well, this is, 47% is still better than what it was the previous year, which was almost half of the survey takers who responded to the survey felt that there could be improvements done for testing. Now, obviously, they mentioned that this was an area that caused delays, but when we drill into why that is happening, you can see some of the core findings of that survey indicating that bottleneck being around automation not happening as quickly as possible. Some organizations have tried to shift left, but are still struggling both with orchestrating as well as creating steady, stable scripts. And what I thought was also very interesting was even with the whole shift to automation, contrary to typical concerns that testers have, where they may be, replaced with tools that actually do the work, majority of the teams are not shrinking, and they are actually growing, just so that way they can get better coverage. So just some information that I thought was very pertinent to what we are talking about today. And hopefully by the end of this webinar, you will have an understanding of how you can smooth out and eliminate some of the bottlenecks that teams typically face when it comes to environment setup and executions. So let's get into it. Let's talk about how we can be the keys to your success. So if you think about Catalon Studio, especially for those who haven't, played with it too much, the key area that this helps in terms of effective orchestration is all about how well and how stable the test scripts and automation scripts that you create are. So Catalan actually allows you to be able to create your scripts once that you could use across the different development stacks. What I mean by development stacks here is you can have the same tool that enables you to have tests that run and validate your APIs. It has the ability to have scripts that run across and test your different UIs. It has the ability to actually access databases and things of that nature. So you don't have to go across different tools. You have this one stop where you can have scripts that can really test all of your different, so to speak, tiers or stacks across your technology stack, right? The other key part also is including that those different stacks. You are also able to create scripts for all of your mobile devices. So if you're doing UI and functional validation and visual validations for your mobile devices along with browsers, you have the ability to have the same script run across all of your different devices. You don't have to use and create different scripts for different devices or OS versions. In similar context, one script would be able to be easily executed across different browsers, so you don't have to create all of that. Basically, the goal and the focus for Catalan from this context and perspective is what capabilities does the tool have and what can we continue adding into it that essentially helps testers to minimize their script maintenance, their script flakiness, and ultimately redundancy of having the same script available in different versions for different devices or different browsers or different technology stacks. So let's talk about some of the key highlights there. So one of the key things that I think as a out of the box feature that is pretty cool is Catalan has a self-healing mechanism. This is the key answer to removing any flakiness when it comes to visual testing and object location and identification that typically, most of us, when we are doing UI tests across the board, whether it's on the browser or on the mobile devices, we encounter. So this is a feature that's available from day one, no special configuration settings, add-ons required. It's a capability that exists within Catalan from the moment you have it installed. And in a nutshell, what I wanted to show everybody was how is that typically set up. So in one of the settings, as you install Catalon Studio, you will find is it's got the self-healing execution enabled by default. And the way it actually does that is it allows us as testers to be able to prioritize how you want your elements on the page to be located and identified. As you can see in this example, the the option I have set for my screenshot on this was use the XPath values as the primary identification method. If that fails for some reason, if the code base has changed where the element is now using a different XPath, it can fall down into the next level, which is leverage the object's attributes. If that doesn't work, it actually goes down to check the CSS. If that doesn't work, it even has the ability to do an image comparison to say, hey, is this the image of the object that the particular automation action needs to be taken with? And what's also great about all of this is as the tool is executing and traversing through down that method, it actually gives you a consolidated report where it tells you and identifies the scripts where an alternate location method was used and gives you a very simple option of simply clicking and accepting that change. So that way when the same script is run the second time, the attribute lower down in the locator method list would actually be the first one to use. Thereby, it's actually helping you to now execute the same script faster and not waiting for any additional identification through methods that previously failed. So that way, it just helps you get smarter and execute your test faster each time it is run. From a cross-platform and testing environment perspective, this is something that just to show people how easy it is to be able to run this. You can see as soon as your scripts are created, you could easily record on one browser with as simple as playback, record, and playback mechanism. If you're not familiar with scripting, but you also have the scripting detail coding technique of creating scripts. But once you have a script available, it's as easy as clicking from your drop downs and identify which other browser you want to run that script from. So you don't have to, for example, create a script specifically using object identification in Firefox and then have you run those only in Firefox. Catalan enables you to actually record your script in one browser and effortlessly execute it in any of the other browsers. Okay. Devin, do you want to talk about a little about Kobaton and the test environments it offers?
Yeah. So first thing to talk about is the real devices that Kobaton offers. We won't mention emulators or simulators here at Kobaton, really because we want you to try and create the best experience possible and really replicate the experience your end users will have when testing those applications and things you would load into Kobaton. So using this visual right here, you are able to choose how you want to deploy. And we kind of talked about this in the beginning, but I primarily want to focus to the image on the right. Whether you want to use or leverage the devices that Kobaton has placed in our data center, you can really start to perform and validate those edge cases of where you don't want to go out and exactly procure one of the devices there, but you still want to be able to validate with the multitude of devices that we will offer for you. We'll have a couple or upwards of 250 plus devices across Android and iOS, including some tablets, whether they be Galaxy tablets or iPads. You will be able to start to perform testing on those simply by purchasing minutes from Kobaton and really validate those scenarios that are important to you. The private cloud really helps those individuals that want to have a dedicated spot in the Kobaton data center, but don't exactly want to handle the updates that come with having real devices, the maintenance that comes with real devices. So we give you the ability to allow Kobaton to host those devices for you as well. And this becomes specifically important in the times of COVID, when you have the trouble of shipping devices back and forth from individuals across the globe. You could easily have them centralized in one central interface. That way, anybody within the organization can easily log into Kobaton and begin their testing with the devices that you have. In most cases, we see individuals like to leverage the hybrid option because they are able to take advantage of the devices that they have in-house, but also, again, leverage the devices that Kobaton has in their public cloud. And when we talk about security, really wanting to drill into the security and make sure everything is either sitting behind our firewall or we are able to control how these things are viewed, there is going to be an on-premises deployment. You will be able to take Kobaton software, place it behind your firewall, and set up and structure that device lab at your headquarters and really only pass information that you specifically need behind your firewall. And so you would be able to drive, again, the first point, the functional, visual, and performance quality across those mobile and IoT devices. So really being able to take the intelligent quality suite and find potential discrepancies across those functional tests. If you want to understand how an application is performing, leveraging the performance features of Kobaton and starting to understand all of that information. You could also make use of Appium, Espresso, and XCUI test. So when we talk about taking those automation scripts and really being able to test that automation across real devices, we will view how we can expose the desired capabilities of these devices and take them and place them into the IDE of where we are currently developing these scripts, really giving us the ease and ability to take an application, run those scripts that we've created for those applications across a real device, and again, understand how that application is performing. And then automate up to 10 times faster with our AI-driven scriptless test automation solution. Our Nova AI engine really is one of its kind, and you would be able to take a manual session that you executed and perform it in an automated fashion across these real devices. So really, you're starting to 10x the amount of testing that you're doing and understand through the assertions that we offer any discrepancies that might happen from visual performance or text standpoint. And this is going to be a list of the Kobaton supported devices. We will be able to dive into this, one, to leverage how we can launch a device and perform our testing, two, how we can expose the desired capabilities and take them and place them into an automated script. And the demo will consist of seeing the sessions from a device that we leverage today. So really looking forward to that part.
Awesome. So just a little bit more about just Catalon. So one of the new features that has recently rolled out is the feature of Catalan desktops. Essentially, it is an execution, scheduling, and reports and analysis module that is available for all of the Catalan users. And what it does is it basically acts as a hub to really centralize all of your test results and insights that have been gathered based on the executions that have occurred. It also becomes a hub where you can analyze and investigate the outcomes of the testing that has been done. If there are issues around execution times, if there's issues around failures for either based on the flakiness of the scripts or because of real defects that were observed, you can come in and take a look at all of that. essentially through a very interactive dashboard that allows you to see how data of your executions historically has stacked up and get great, meaningful, actionable insights. The key takeaway for me when leveraging desktops has been to actually get into a repeatable, methodical process of eliminating my script flakiness, because that's the key component that if you can break that away, it automatically helps build confidence in the scripts that are used to ultimately validate the behaviors of your application, right? Developers, we would want developers to trust the outcomes of our scripts rather than question the confidence they have in our scripts, typically associated with the flakiness, so to speak, of our scripts. So just looking a little bit more into test ops, here's an example of a screenshot that I've taken from a series samples of tests that were run. As you can see, we've got one column in there, first by categorization at the very top that says, hey, if you want to see which test cases that were run are ordered by being the slowest, right? You can see the average durations of those different test cases. And you can see compared to some of the other tests, when there was a failure that was associated with one of them, it took over a minute and a half and to typically run on most cases. And you can see what has been the percentage of how often failures have happened, not necessarily based on the application, but actually tied to the script itself. So this sort of insightful information can easily help you as your test lead or even as a tester to evaluate your tests and its execution time, so you can eliminate that and get more efficiency built into your execution process as well. The second category, as you guys may have already picked up on, is all about the flakiness of scripts. So you can see we've got an option in desktops that now lets you also detect and identify what is the flakiness factor. So here's an example where we saw one script that typically, as it evolved through multiple execution runs, it's got a factor of about almost being 3/4 of the way, where it's most likely to fail, not for reasons of valid issues, but just based on the way the script was written. So it helps me prioritize and really tackle the issue to say, hey, is that script something that we need, or is that something that's just so archaic that it's not behaving as expected? So do we just rewrite a fresh alternative to it, or retire it, or actually fix it? Similarly, you can see with another section of desktops is to allow you to see the results and identify potential issues. So in the example that I have on the screen, you could see I had a few tests that failed. You can see from that suite how many basically passed, how many failed, how many encountered errors, how many were interrupted, under what configuration were they executed under. And clicking in each of them is allowing you to get in there and really drill into and find the root cause of what those underlying issues are. So it's got a lot of good drill in options that and really enable you to identify issues relatively quickly. And then finally, also the part I mentioned earlier about having information for dashboards and historical information. You can see here's a really example of a relatively smaller test suite that we ran. Out of two runs that we did recently earlier in the week, you could see what was the typical average run times, how does it relate to the environments that it was run, and so forth. So you get a lot of good data that could be actionable as you progress and collect more information. Also, as I was mentioning, being able to methodically eliminate script flakiness is a key component that desktops definitely helps us address effectively. Here is an example where if you had a failure when you clicked into the issue, you could easily create a direct Jira defect for it, or you could leverage all of the information that was collected by the tool itself and attach it while the issue was created. And even as it's updated, you don't have to go into a different tool. You could easily come back here and see that information as well. So just another example of how you're limiting or minimizing having to jump through different tools, and having Catalan and Desktop seamlessly integrate with all of the tools that are available. So having said that, what I want to do today is walk you guys through a simple example of a demo where we are creating a script. So you can see how easy it is to create a mobile script. And then what I'll also do is show you how we quickly integrate that with Kobiton. So let me play this for you. So as you can see, what we typically did was I'm going through a step where I'm identifying a device that is connected to my machine, and I am trying to load on an application simply to record my steps for a test. So it's as easy as identifying the device and the application, and initiating the application to show up in the screen. As soon as that is encountered, you can see as I'm interacting with the device, my steps are automatically being added to the left. You can see I click on provider and I hit tap. It captured that action and identified what I did on it. So just a simple start with a couple of clicks and storing it. I'm now creating a subfolder that I'm identifying all of the different objects that I interacted with, and I am now creating the test case, just naming the test case. So you can see it's as easy as just that. The second tab called the script actually shows what I had in script. So you have the ability to actually see all of that. Here is where I am now making sure that I have integration available to Kobaton. I am now going to go into a test suite and simply execute my tests both on Android and iOS, as you see, using this existing tab. So what I have done is I'm just going over to Kobaton to show you the different devices that I have available in my account. So I'm going to switch the first one. Instead of running it on the A7 version, I'm going to go ahead and change it to run on a different Android device. And I'll do a similar thing with the iOS as well. So you see, as I connect it, because it's fully integrated, I have direct access to all of those devices right from within Catalan. And then as soon as I change that, save the suites, and I'm now running the test. And you can see basically as the process will kick off, you will see all of the logs show up under the log viewer. You can see it started that, it's running, it's interacted with the device on Kobiton. Um, with the drop down there, you can see the results individually from both of the two suites that I have within my tests collection. So you could see all of the interactions, the two taps that I had hypothetically created show up. So now I've switched over to the second suite, and you can see the exact same steps happening on a different device. So as you can see, it's seamless, where I didn't have to create any special interactions or what if conditions within my scripts. I seamlessly ran the same one on Android and iOS. And because my tool is also set up with Catalan reports, my execution runs are now seamlessly moving over to desktops as well. So I have a central location where I can now see the history of this run as well. So you can see my tests pass. I'll switch over to the other one and you'll see the same result on the passes as well. And the results basically just like any other test did. Okay. So going into Kobiton, and I know Devin will actually go more into details with it, but the test that was just run, you can see I now see the sessions actually show up. So these were the two that I had run previously in preparation for this webinar. You can then go into those sessions, and what Kobiton does, which I think is pretty cool, is it'll actually have all of that interactions with the actual device stored as a video as well. So you can see that here's the details of all of the interactions that happened. Here's how the device interacted, and a whole video that goes in for it. Similarly, we'll do the exact same thing, just a quick look at the other session as well. So the previous one was the iOS one, now is the Android. We can look at that, and it'll essentially show you the same details on it as well. You can see with the Android Samsung device, this was what we had in here as well. Cool. So having done that, let me pause sharing my screen and hand it over to Devin so that way he can do a Kobaton demo real quick.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So you guys should be able to see the Kobaton portal, the Kobaton logo in the top left, and a list of public devices. Just to touch on it again, we like to have within our public cloud devices that span across Android and iOS, and also supporting all the way back to Android 4 up to Android 11, and then on iOS 9 all the way up to iOS 14. I can come over here to the list view and I'll be able to start to toggle this information and view it by our older devices or the more recent ones, whichever are most important to you. I'll be able to leverage any device that reflects being online. So just to touch on the public cloud again, maybe I just want to test on this Galaxy A10 right here. Don't want to necessarily go out and procure one because it doesn't make sense to do that. I just have a couple things that I want to validate. Since it's reflecting online, I could easily start to click launch and then start my testing with this device. Where we see a lot of individuals gravitate towards is going to be the private and local instance here. This is extremely important because looking at these 4 devices that we would have right here, 2 of these devices will be stationed at a colleague of mine's house. Two of these devices will actually be stationed at my location. As someone that sits under the Kobaton organization up top right here, I would be able to come into the Kobaton portal and start to perform and test on these devices without having them directly in front of me. So again, in times like today with COVID, this becomes increasingly important to not have the need to ship devices across the globe and whatnot. What I've done in preparation of this webinar was performed a test on a device that we have here. As Moosh mentioned, being able to perform a test allows us to have this concept of test evidence and really be able to see what was collected during that session, whether it be manual or automated. And again, all that information is going to sit in the sessions repository, collecting it across any of the Appium, XCUI, or Espresso scripts we execute, as well as those automated sessions. I'll be able to receive video playback so I could go in and see everything that happened during the duration of that test. I will be able to see any and all of my session info, as well as any applications that we install as well. And then the device info is just going to come standard with me to show the UDIDs of the device. Again, every device is going to have a UDID and or serial number so we can understand that these are real devices that we are using. And then in the detail section, this is actually where we are able to break down a lot of this information and really help make things easier for the end user to go through each one of their actions that they performed while in the device. So the first panel here is going to be the CPU. How did we leverage the CPU during this test? How do we leverage our memory? How much network information did it take as we went through certain points of this test? If I want to, I could see that at 20 seconds, I was leveraging, I sent and received a certain amount of network information, and I could come and sort of match up these 2 timelines here to understand what was being done at that point in time to be able to reflect that. At the bottom here is really going to be how we start to dig into the details of any of the tests that we have. I can come here and start to drag this timeline to understand all the steps that happen as we went through and tested. We'll see at this point in time, it looks like I performed a couple different things. I'll be able to leverage this intuitive zoom feature to break down these steps to understand exactly what happened. And again, understand everything as it happened. And we get a little description as to what happened as well at the bottom. You'll also see that we have the ability to observe any of the request response for any of our manual tests as well. So to understand how that performance is happening for the specific application we might be in, or maybe for a mobile web application, we will be able to break down the requests and response across different text, image files, audio files, video files, whatever you want to understand how it's performing and what the request and response of that piece of information is. You'll be able to log a ticket directly back into the Jira side as well. So for all those teams that are using the issue management tool Jira, feel free to log a ticket, whether it be a bug, a task, or an issue back into Jira to keep up that collaboration with the development team that will sit inside the Jira instance. And just before I turn it back over, I do want to talk about how we would support the ability to run your automation scripts with Kobaton. In each of the devices that we have here, we can click these 3 dots, and which will expose the actual information on the device. Going into automation settings, I will start to see the desired capabilities of this device as well. So I could come up here and say that with this Galaxy A10, I want to run my Appium scripts that we develop in Java, of course. Maybe I want to change the session name and description to whichever naming convention is most important to me. By way of setting up the organization within Kobaton, we are able to configure the groups and device groups on whatever groups we have within the organization. So if you have 2 or 3 groups that are going to use Kobaton, feel free to set those up. If you have up to 30, you can set those up as well. But these user groups and device groups will give us the ability to select how we want the results to come back and which group they should be associated to. We are able to choose whether or not we want to use a specific device or start to leverage wildcard values with the devices that we have in our instance. And supporting web, hybrid from native URL, or hybrid native from any application that we've already installed in the Kobaton repository. We can just select it from the apps repo here. Just by configuring all this information, I could easily start to copy and paste this, place it into my IDE of choice where I start to develop my scripts, and go ahead and run this. It'll start to bring those results back into the sessions area, as Moosh mentioned, again, spanning across manual and automated tests. And I will be able to start to filter this information by what's most important to me. So for those automation teams, feel free to come into Kobaton, create a group for them, and give them the place where they can start to run their tests and collect those results back into the Kobaton tool here. Awesome. That is about all I had. Moosh, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you, Devin. All right. I am just wanted to make sure you guys are seeing my screen again. I've got a slide that I am requesting webinar feedback on. Devin, is that the one you are seeing as well?
That is the one I can see. Yes.
Great. Okay. So thank you, everybody. Just a quick update. I want to launch a quick survey to get your questions and feedback for this webinar. You should see a poll up on your screen. If you could kindly take a minute and answer those questions for us. We'll take about a minute and give everybody a chance to answer that, please. It'll really help us cater and get your feedback into consideration of the upcoming webinars that we put together and share with the community. Okay, maybe take another 15 seconds and gather all of the information. Thank you, everybody who took the time and answered that. Right after the poll, we will switch over to our Q&A time. I know as we've been walking through the demonstration, a lot of people ask questions both within the chat window as well as the Q&A window. And our team has been diligently trying to answer all of them in there. Also, the other thing I would mention is in case you have a question that was not able to be answered, head on over to our forums. You will definitely find a lot of information that you're looking for over there as well. So thank you for everybody who answered the polls. Let me go ahead and take a look at the questions that have come through. So the ones that are still open is one tied for Kobiton. So Devin, I'll go ahead and ask you this. One of the questions posted was, can Kobiton testing incorporate entitlements such as geolocations or multi-language audio inputs and outputs?
Very good question. So geolocation, yes. I know for the audio components, those are things that we actually have on the roadmap and look to release later on this year. So we've actually taken some feedback from some of our customers, and we realize that that's a very important feature, especially when you're testing certain portions of your mobile applications. So we definitely look to add the audio components this year, but for geolocation, we will definitely be able to support that. I believe there was one more in the middle of that, Moosh. I'm sorry, it kind of broke up for me. What was the second one you mentioned?
The geolocations, and let me just go back real quick to it. I believe there was multi-language audio input and outputs.
Okay, yeah, okay, so the multi-language, oh, gotcha. So that's for audio. So yes, we will look to support that later on this year.
Perfect.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Another one, and this, this sounds like it's a combination, but is one of the other questions was, does it support parallel execution on multiple VM-time devices? And from a Catalan perspective, it definitely does. You could have different test suites created. The end location of that obviously going to run for the device is obviously the answer is yes. Also, the only exception to that, I would think, Devin, from our perspective, would be if the device is currently being utilized by a test suite, then you cannot share the device in real time across two different test suites. It has to be sequential in that context, but from a request perspective, it can definitely be a parallel execution request. Is that a fair summary of both the tools, so to speak?
Very much so. Very accurate.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Um, the other question that does come up is related to Catalan. The question is it possible to automate testing different platforms in the same test case when one platform says for a website and the other one is for a mobile device? And this would be more, I think, geared towards Catalan more than Kopiton, just because Catalan is the one that would do sort of the end-to-end flow of the different interactions. And the answer to that is yes. We have the ability within Catalan to have what's called as a called test capability, which enables you to essentially really perform those end-to-end scenarios as a test case. You actually have an option either to call another test case within the same test. So you could mimic the different flows going from website to uh, uh, mobile, as an example. An alternate approach could also be you could have that sequentially ordered as a test suite, and both of these approaches would work. You would have to look at how best from an execution time perspective and efficiency perspective is the right solution for your particular products. In addition, Catalan also supports the use of global and local variables. So you definitely can extract information from, say, one platform being website and then reusing that as an entry point, for example, on the mobile front. So that's was another question that was raised. Thank you for that. Another question was, is desktops like Jenkins? And the answer to that is no. Desktops is more about dashboard analytics. It's got some components from a reporting perspective that you may be seeing in Jenkins, right? But it does not, at least at this point, initiate or build any software to deploy them. In the future, what we are trying to do is leverage desktops to actually act as an orchestration and environment creation mechanism. So stay tuned for that. But if I was to currently state it to say, is it similar or replacement of Jenkins? I would say the answer to that is no. Okay. Uh, I have one more question, which I think is interesting. Can Catalan be capable to automate a set-top box, like a TV set-top box? And that's a very interesting question. I think my answer to that would be depends on what is the OS. If the OS on the box is something that could be mimicked just like a mobile device or through an emulator that is connected, it probably could. I would say that would be a trial and error. I haven't seen, quite honestly, what other people have done. I would recommend checking out the community forums and seeing if anybody has done anything to that. That's pretty interesting. One question again, coming back to Kobiton, Devin, maybe you can help answer that for me. One of the questions raised is how can we integrate our local devices into the private cloud? Is this something that the Kobiton support team would help along the process?
Yeah, either one of the Kobaton support members can help, or we have some pretty excellent documentation that kind of walks through the setup and configuration of it, which is fairly easy to do. And typically, when we're working with customers or prospects, we can get on a working session and do it in about 30 to 45 minutes. It's as simple as downloading the Kobaton software, which you'll find in the Kobaton portal, and tethering the devices to a Mac product. The setup when in the application is fairly easy. You download a couple of different packages, as well as configure some things on the iOS side when it comes to Xcode and your development certificates. And once you do that, you're pretty much good to go. So feel free to email support@kobaton.com, and we can set you up with either one of our support engineers or the documentation to get you squared away and set up.
Awesome. Just following up on that, there's a couple of questions. Is it possible to test taking a photo or scanning a QR code on the device within the cloud testing solution of Kobaton?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, right now, with our local deployment, you would be able to leverage the camera that is situated on that device. In the near future, again, on the roadmap, we look to actually incorporate image injection. So, when you want the ability to either bring in a barcode, bring in a QR code into the camera view, and be able to scan that, we will look to add that and give individuals the ability to do that. Today, individuals just leverage the local deployment to have their camera situated with against a barcode. That way, they can fire off a device, go to the camera application, and take photos of that. But just to have the ability to do that from an image injection standpoint, we are looking to support that very soon here.
Awesome. 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 So I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you everybody for attending and listening, and thank you again for the wonderful questions. We hope this session was informational for you, and we look forward to additional questions from you and sharing on the community forums. And if needed, please reach out to us on our websites, catalan.com and kobiton.com. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.